Welcome to another episode of the Meal Prep Monday podcast. I'm your host and founder of Prep Dish, Allison Schaaf. In today's episode, I am doing some lunch inspiration and reviewing the lunches I've had over the past few weeks and just some ideas for mixing up lunch. Before I get into today's episode, I have an email to read from Prep Dish customer Sarah from California. Sarah writes, I have loved your service. Having a prepped plan has changed my evenings. Instead of using the last bit of my patience and creativity to come up with a dinner, I know exactly what the complete meal is and can help my kiddos through the nasty witching hour. Now I am less distracted when I talk to them about their day and help with homework or even just play. Our evening cleanup has become so much easier and quicker. My kids are more willing to try new things, and it's so helpful for developing new tastes and preferences. I can't tell you how much faster grocery shopping is when I'm not trying to calculate portions in the store or triple checking that I have everything I need for all of the meals. So thank you. Thank you for changing my evenings, my attitude, and helping my family be healthier. Sarah, thank you so much for sharing. I love hearing that. I feel like when you say your family's healthier, yes, you're eating kind of a wider variety of foods, maybe healthier foods, but I hear that your evenings themselves are a healthier atmosphere and you are creating this time of connection and calmness, whereas before maybe it was hectic. And I just love hearing this. This is one of the things at Prep Dish that we feel really strongly about is like not only providing the tools for healthier, tastier meals, but helping to create these evenings that are more filled with connection. And like you said, time to play with your kids or, when you ask a question, having the capacity to stop and listen to the response. And so that just really warms my heart to hear that your evenings are more calm and connected. If you are listening to this and you have not tried our meal plans, we have an exclusive 2-week free trial set up for listeners of this podcast at prepdish.com/MPM. That's MPM short for Meal Prep Monday. So if you want to try it out for 14 days for free, just head to prepdish.com/MPM. Okay, so I am going to share what I thought I'd do, just kind of walk through some of the things I've had for lunch over the past few weeks. I know this is a question we get a lot. I've done some episodes on lunches before. Some of these ideas are going to be repeats of things I've mentioned in the past, but there's still things that are working in our household. And again, I think sometimes it's just helpful to hear a new idea at the right time. So some ideas that I have, I think, 4 ideas jotted down of things that have worked over the past few weeks. Number 1, so this week on Sunday, I made a big thing in the crock pot. Like I threw it in the morning before we went to church and did a big goat stew. So it was stew meat, potatoes, carrots, celery. We had it for lunch that day, but I didn't really use a recipe, but I would say it was probably like a double or triple portion. And so we had some of that for lunch on Sunday, and then the rest will be used this week for kind of the default lunch. So that's one thing. And this works really good in the winter. We've done it in the summer, but in the winter, of course, like anything hot and warm and stew like is a lot more, like it's not winter right now when we're eating it. I don't know, but it feels like we're kind of getting into fall. So anyway, the stew has worked really nice. As we head into winter even more, things like a chili for the week. And I love chilies because you can kind of do a few things with them. Like you can eat it as a chili, you can put it on top of chips, you can put it on top of salad. Like there's kind of different ways you can put it in a wrap. You can kind of mix up how you serve it. And then just like different soups. So anything like that is something that sometimes I will do of like, hey, here's the default lunch. And then as you'll see, there's other things that we mix in throughout the week. So the second thing that I will mention, and I probably mention this every time, is a lot of times I will just have leftovers from dinner. I typically use the super fast meal plans at Prep Dish. A lot of times I'm testing the super fast. So all of the super fast plans that we do, when they're created, someone creates them and then they're also tested. So there's kind of like a few step process that all of our plans go through. So if I'm testing that, I will still often double or even triple the recipes. I double them so that I can have, leftovers for lunch the next day. So that's kind of my second idea, is to just double what you're making for dinner and have that for lunch. And a little caveat there too of I think a lot of times this happens for breakfast and lunch. People get in their mind like a breakfast needs to be, toast or cereal or eggs, and lunch needs to be a sandwich or a salad. And I would challenge you if you are struggling with lunches, of thinking beyond that. I really think of my lunch in the same way I think of my dinners. I want to have some protein, some, healthy carb, whether that's, rice or sweet potato or potatoes or plantains or whatever it is, squash, and then like some veggies. So I'm not really treating my lunches much differently than I am my dinners, other than I don't usually go through and make something from scratch. I'm more comfortable just having leftovers. But that being said, that's kind of my third idea. So the first one was like a stew or soup. The second one was leftovers. The third one is to do a full dinner recipe. So during the summer, my kids are home all summer. They're also home on Fridays. So sometimes I will do like, the super fast plans have 5 meals. So sometimes I will do one of those meals for lunch, like the first time we have it. So for example, Friday on lunch, I might just do a dinner recipe that's, like shrimp with roasted green beans and rice. And that comes together really quickly, right? Like shrimp cooks quickly, green beans cook quickly, the rice in the rice cooker, like that's a very quick and easy meal. And like, adding some sort of seasonings to make it more fun. But whatever it is, whatever meal plan I'm on, just like making one of the dinners for lunch, especially if everyone's here. If it's the weekend, I might do that as well. So it just kind of depends on where we're at and if we have leftovers or not. But I will do a kind of like quote unquote dinner recipe, because I, in my mind, a lot of times don't say, oh, this is a dinner food versus a lunch food. So that is my third idea. And then the fourth one that I've been doing, and this one is more so if no one else is at home and I need something in a pinch, is I have been doing a siete tortilla. So I have tortillas that I keep in the freezer so I can just kind of pull out one at a time with some sort of protein. A lot of times, so I mentioned back in August, I talked about my breakfast rotation. Our breakfast rotation still looks similar. So if you want to go back to that episode, it's still a very similar rotation. I am trying to do 1 or 2 protein options at the beginning of the week for breakfast. Sometimes that will be like a ground meat that I have with my eggs. So if I have more ground meat, I can have that at lunch as well. So, if there's some ground lamb, I'll put that in a siete tortilla, maybe with some cheese and salsa and some, a salad on the side or some veggie sticks on the side. Sometimes I'll do it with some avocado. Sometimes I will, if there is no other protein, I can open a can of tuna for the protein and, do a quick tuna salad in the tortilla. So kind of just like, that's just kind of like if there's no one home, nothing else to do, the siete tortilla with, it doesn't have to be that brand, but I have found, because I am gluten-free, the corn tortillas work fine for tacos, and we definitely do tacos at lunch, so that works great. But for like an actual wrap, the siete tortillas, like the cassava or the almond flour, are more similar to like a flour wrap. So like with a tuna salad, I feel like they pair a lot nicer than, say, a corn tortilla. So I like using those. Of course, if you're not gluten-free, you have other options that you could use as well. But those I like. And again, it's nice because I can keep it in the freezer, so I don't have to worry about going through them. And it's not something that's like every day. It's just kind of the days that no one else is around. So I think that's the 4. I listed them out. So I've got doing some sort of super stew is kind of the default. Doing leftovers, always kind of my top thing is like whatever's left over from the night before, that's lunch the next day. Actually making like a quote unquote dinner recipe from scratch for lunch. And keeping in mind, like some of those, especially if you're doing our super fast menu, that may sound like it takes a lot of time. There are a lot of meals that really don't take that much time. It's like I go into the kitchen for 5 minutes, put it together, throw it in the oven or on the stove, come back in 15 minutes and it's ready. So it's not like this big time intensive thing. And then the last one being doing some sort of wrap with some veggies on the side is another option. So those are some of the things I'm doing for lunch right now. I know some of those are same thing I was probably doing last year, but I do get a lot of questions on that and thought that might be helpful, especially if you are using the meal plans, just kind of a little PSA of like, reminder, you can always just double the dinner recipes, or, depending on your family size, maybe you already have leftovers of the dinner foods and using those for lunch. So that way you're not needing to come up with, 14 meals a week. It's like, oh, I can just do 7 and double them and have the same thing for lunch. So if you're already doing the effort once, you might as well just make a little bit more. It's not that much more effort. So that's kind of my go-to hack for lunches. Okay, and that's all I have for today's episode. A reminder, if you do want to try out those meal plans, we have that 2-week free trial set up at prepdish.com/MPM, short for Meal Prep Monday. That's 14 days for free. You can try it out, see how it goes. If you are a longtime listener to this podcast, I would love it if you could give a rating and review. If you've done that, if you're not on Apple Podcast, if you could just, take a screenshot or shoot a text to a friend that might benefit from the content here, I would really appreciate it. That's how more people find out about this podcast. That's how we continue to do the work that we do and put out the content. So that is all I have for this week. I will be back again next Monday with another episode.